Here we are.
Welcome, everybody. Really nice to see you. This is day 7. Day 7. That number is just ominous. And I call this the dilemma of practice because I think sometimes the application task becomes a dilemma, especially when you're juggling so many things. And so many of you are working and have families, family commitments, and various other things. So as always, hats off to each one of you for all your engagement and efforts. So I picked this quote because I think one of the things that with the kind of the theme and all of us are coming to terms with is this, that there's so many unknowns, or as the predictable unpredictability that we talked about. And I really like this point. And yesterday I really got to witness this because in Switzerland we were part of the European football tournament, and our team won. It's the first time we go into the quarterfinals since 1938, but we were all locked in our homes throughout the whole country. Nobody was allowed to go out because we had these torrential rains and rock avalanches, and our train system is down today, and the main highway that goes from Germany to Italy has washed, a huge section has completely washed away, and they think it'll take about 4 weeks. It's one of the major axes that all Northern Europe uses to go down to Italy. So there's just a lot going on. A lot of homes and cities have been flooded, and it just it was this dichotomy. Everybody was celebrating the win but couldn't go outside. And I was just telling Kim and Vicky around 2:30, 3 o'clock, maybe even 4, suddenly you saw hundreds of people in the street because the storm finished and they really wanted to go and celebrate. But I think it's that creative tension that we all experience, all of you, be it geopolitical, environmental. It's becoming more and more apparent and more real. This is the 3rd time this has happened in the last month. We've had quite a few deaths. It's just been quite significant. And you get that sense of, how our points of reference that we have relied on are often not good enough anymore, or not appropriate. And I think that challenge is just so interesting as you head into your context and also are navigating these complexities. So it's just a little anecdote from last night. Welcome to day 7. This is going to be a little more low key, some opportunities. I'm going to show you some protocols, actually one protocol that you're going to practice that I think is really quite powerful. We're going to do a bit of an overview of the day and what we did this week, some reflections. And then you also are going to talk a bit about how you're going to stay connected and how the importance of these digital tools can be with professional learning networks, and explore that. And then we have graduation. You're going to a graduation ceremony. How exciting. I hope everybody brought some champagne or some bubbly water, and you have your hats. We have extra seats for grandparents, parents, and children, so don't worry, there's plenty of room. On that note, it's such a privilege and pleasure to have our pearler of the day, and that's Nick Pitt. Nick is in Peru, and he is at Collegio Britannica, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that badly. It's pretty bad, I know. But he is at an international school in Lima, and he's going to share his pearl of the day. So Nick, thank you so much again for stepping up and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you. And we're seeing what happens when you check a box on an application. You're not really reading all the terms and conditions, but I'm happy to be doing this and happy to be meeting everybody. The pearl I'd like to share with everyone here is the answer as leaders to any question should never be because it's always been that way. As a newly minted or newly reminted educator rejoining the international school community after 8 years, sabbatical in business. I think anytime we receive that answer, especially a new teacher, it does a lot of damage, unseen damage to the morale of the newer teachers, and not new meaning newly arrived teachers who are looking at things with fresh eyes. About 8 years ago, my wife and I guess it's been 10 years now. Wow, never mind. 10 years ago, my wife and I had our first son in Tokyo. I was at Tokyo International School, and my wife was at Seisen. We had lovely jobs, loved our school, loved our communities, but realized to make we wanted to establish a home culture with our children. After much debate, we moved back to the United States. And I'm sure, as many of us know, trying to raise a family on a teacher salary in the United States is quite difficult. So I made the switch to Optimal Hearing, which was our family's audiology and hearing aid company, which we ended up growing over the 8 years I was with the company. And we exited that company, selling it to a Danish firm about a year and a half ago. And my wife and I decided it was very important to us to reestablish and instill in our two children now the love of international culture, language study, and seeing the world. So we have been, we moved to the Patagonia, where we saw Argentina win the World Cup. And I'm sure if you've met an Argentine recently, they let you know that as well. And we've since moved to Lima, Peru, where I started working at Colegio Peruano Británico and teaching English, middle school, and IBDP. So entering a new place, you see a lot of things with fresh eyes. I arrived after 3 weeks of planning to pick up, yes, 3 weeks of pre-planning. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but 3 weeks of pre-planning to pick up some printing I had done for our my first class. And I went into the printers down in the basement. And you have to go down some stairs to get them. And I went to pick them up after, and the door was locked. I said, that's interesting. I guess they're in the bathroom, or no one's there today. I'll come back in an hour and grab my printing. Nope. They weren't. A couple times during the day, I finally asked, I said, well, why is the door locked? Why can't I go grab my printing? And they looked at me and said, oh, it's always been that way, right? The door's locked. You can pick printing up from 7:30 to 7:40 in the morning, or from 3 to 3:20 in the afternoon, because it's just always been that way. No one can give me a fair answer. And that's not there's several little things like this within schools. And coming back to the AI policy, I asked about ChatGPT. This was prior to this course, and how can it be used in the classroom? And like, oh, it's banned. It's not allowed. And I said, well, why? I was like, well, it's always been that way. And it led me to kind of diminishes the question when the answer isn't given a thoughtful response. So when people come looking for challenges or operational issues with new eyes, they're seeking a new understanding, and it should be seen as a new opportunity for innovation, a new opportunity for engagement, to create a collaborative culture within a school, as opposed to just kind of pushing it away and saying, well, you know what, it's always been that way. Fresh eyes can see the opportunities where others have seen the old way as the status quo. And I'm challenging us as educational leaders, as aspiring educational leaders in my case, or classroom teachers, who are also leaders, as we've learned throughout this course, that implementing an AI policy in a thoughtful and creative way, as opposed to just pushing it aside and saying, we can't do it because or we can't allow this into the classroom, is the equivalent of saying it's always been this way. It's the equivalent of trying to put the genie back in the bottle, and that's just not possible. So, in summary, I will challenge us all to use the digital tools that have been made available to us through this course, the thinking that's been made available through this course, to craft thoughtful policies where the old way is no longer sufficient. So to summarize, I will quote the great thought leader, Jay-Z, and he said, if you're having AI problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but the tech ain't one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Wonderful, lovely story. And that arc of a story is just so engaging. Thank you so much. And well, some important things to walk away with I think it's so true what you're saying about how, the no or it's been that way. It's quite demeaning. It's disrespectful. And I appreciate you highlighting that. Thank you so much, Nick, again, for sharing. And I want to thank every one of the Perlers this week. Thank you so much for stepping up and sharing and giving us your insights. This is such a nice way to kick off our time, our last day together. So thank you. Welcome to day 7. And feedback. Quite a few people asked if we could kind of do a summary of the week. So I'm going to spend some time on that with some other activities and a protocol that I think could be really helpful, especially when you're trying to implement digital platforms or change digital ecosystems. I think this protocol can be quite powerful.
I want to start by asking everyone in the audience here a question. How many of you are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do, that we've convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader, and we don't let ourselves take credit for it, and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who have helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school on a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, "I remember the first time that I met you." And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, "On my day before I started university, I was in the hotel room with my mom and my dad, and I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, 'Look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day, and if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us, we will take you home. We love you no matter what.'" And she said, so I went the next day and I was standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she says, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. And just at that moment, you came out of the student union building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting Shinorama, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along and you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about Shinorama. And all of a sudden, you got to me and you just stopped and you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me and you smiled and you reached in your bucket, you pulled out a lollipop and you held it out to him. And you said, you need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you. And she said, I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life. He turned beet red and he wouldn't even look at me. He just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face and you looked at my mom and my dad and you said, look at that, look at that. First day away from home and already she's taking candy from a stranger. And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy and I don't know why I'm telling you this. But in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm gonna miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, you should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later. A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker, I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment, and I've searched my memory banks because that is funny, and I should remember doing it, and I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, you've been an incredibly important person in my life, was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been the catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you haven't, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, "Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us." And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we've made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful an agent for change they can be in this world, you've changed the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think if we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you today. Having a great day at TED. I'll see you later.
So you're going to go into your breakout rooms, and Vicky's going to put you in new groups. Again, as always, please make sure to introduce yourself and say who you are, where you're from, and your school. And then you're going to have an opportunity using these 3 prompts. What did you connect with the video? Why did you connect with this? How do you feel having made that connection? And just think of the context, your school, your role, the week, the people, and then also what Drew Dudley is sharing about lollipop moments. It'll be 9 minutes to have that conversation. Make sure again to have a timekeeper, somebody honoring, facilitating, divide up the 9 minutes equally, and make sure you're honoring all voices. Thank you so much for your continued support with that. If you get a chance, Drew Dudley has a bunch of fantastic speeches on different aspects of leadership. He has a great one where he goes on a dune buggy in the desert. It's just a wonderful story about why we tend to encourage failure through grades. And it's just very powerful. So if you get a chance, many of them are on our shared Padlet, just if it's of interest to explore further. This is our day. We just kind of touched on leadership. We're going to look at our learning. Then I'm going to have you practice the 5 Why protocol. There are many protocols out there, but this one I think as leaders can be a really powerful one, especially when you're problem solving or you're trying to define purpose. And then we're going to talk a bit about professional learning networks in a virtual world, and then open for some questions and answers, our trenches, and then we have graduation. And all the seats are taken. So if you got any guests, sorry, no more space today. We're all booked up. But on that note, I don't want to spend too much time on the application task, but you are hopefully in a good shape. And, we're really trying to make it to connect to your school role. If you're in transition, it might be more of a personal application task than a community or role application task. And the digital fluency is not something that you have to use, but it's something that might be of interest. And this is something I use universally with all the students that I work with. And they and even the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten kids now have the cards, and they'll come to me when they talk to me and they'll bring the card and say, I'm having trouble here. And so we've visualized it. But I think it's just one of the many design thinking frameworks that you can use. I like this one because it's icon based and it's quite clear. And I love the word dream. I think it is something very positive about it. But on that note, what I want to do just before I continue, is there any just little questions about application task, or are we kind of in a good space? And if you're not, you can reach out to me. I will stay online for the end of of today. And if you want to book anything, please just feel free. I have time from 4 to 5:15 today. I have quite a few openings, so I'd be happy to do that. I think, Nick, you wrote a question and I didn't see it because it disappeared. Do you mind?
Sure. My question was on the not on the application task, but on the flow that you just shared. The definition, is that something, is that when you, the teacher, define the task for the student, or is it you reach an understanding together of what the definition of the task is, or are they asked to define their own task or project?
That was a great question. So generally what we do is give them a problem and then they define what the problem is through their eyes and how they're going to engage with the problem. Most of the times it's a challenge, a problem, or a tension. It's usually not a bunch of directions. Does that make sense? So they need to define in their context what the problem is based on the scenario. So usually we create a scenario, we give them different situations. It's very visual or it could be tactile. And then they basically have to say, okay, I'm defining this is what I have to do. This is what I have to research. This is what I'm going to dream and design, etc. And then at the end, we start again. So it's iterative. So usually I get them to know that it can take 2, 3 times before they're really ready. And they hate that. They're always like, really? Really? When a third grader tells you, really? You're like, okay. Anyway, and thank you for that question. Any other questions or clarifications? And do reach out if you need any support, yeah? So we'll continue. So 7 days of learning, and I'm sure you're feeling like she is. She's just like, damn, I'm tired. I know Vicky was saying how happy she is that she can sleep in tomorrow. So, and I'm just looking forward to getting up early and getting on the paddleboard. So all of you very likely are, some of you are flying. Anyway, we've had 7 days of learning, but I have one request. I have one invitation. As we reflect on this learning, invite yourself through all these topics, not to look through your own lens, but that of your students. Because that's the lens that's important. That's the perspective, that's the view that we need to have. And if we spend too much time looking at our lens, we're going to lose what the students actually need. And I think so often in schools, we're very good about talking about student agency, playing to it, but where is their student agency and how do you create student agency? That needs to be carefully curated and choreographed and scaffolded from a very early age. And often people associate student agency with chaos. And if that's the case, it's because there hasn't been a thoughtful and purposeful scope and sequence in developing the skills, the dispositions, the values, and the knowledge of what that is. So that's just an invitation for you to consider as we go through today. So I think, we all agree AI has kind of been the number one thing on everybody's mind, but really at the end of the day, it's just another change. It's a change on steroids. It has more of a domino effect on our lives, maybe indirectly, but definitely we are foreseeing this only to get bigger and more complex and more nuanced. And not engaging with it is an option. But I think this week you all have really come to terms with how important it is to really think about this. Everybody has different entry points. Everybody does it through a different lens. But I think also to remember, what are the students facing? What are the students going to be doing? Because many students are going to engage with this at levels that maybe can't even imagine. And they will come back to the classroom. Remember that in any situation, there are drivers. So in your school, you very likely have some drivers, some shifts that are impacting your school. Think about that. Maybe your school is going through accreditation. Maybe there is a geopolitical situation. Maybe there's a social emotional issue. Just think about the different drivers and the patterns, and maybe look at those and how they align with some of the drivers of change that we looked at today. And again, with anything in the digital world and ecosystem environments, remember that pyramid. And each one has its importance, each one has a focus, but they're interconnected. It's kind of systems thinking. If you think of a lot of the system thinking we've been talking about, and understand that, you could have four working really well, and you could have empowered students, but not enhanced teaching because the students are being empowered on their own, or they're using AI tools to be empowered, but there's not enhanced teaching. So always, it doesn't mean that they build on top of each other. One could supersede the other, and understanding what that looks like in your role and how you manage that. And of course, we talked about Kostner's managing complex change. And these are just great points of reference to understand that change is what it is, it's change, and that there's a grieving process. And people often want to know what's not going to change before you tell them what is going to change. And being very explicit and transparent, and that transparency show the empathy and the structures that are going to help people through it, and understand they will go through this in a differentiated manner. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Digital security is critical. It's important. I just really like the shared ownership and all the resources that you shared out in your activities. There was a collective understanding how it is a collective understanding, and you as a leader, it's important to model that. And then also that idea of your modeling, your culture's responsibility, and really by what you do has an impact on how others act. We talked a lot about the standards, the DQ Institute, cards. You worked with the cards and understanding what are those skills and knowledges and how do they intertwine with your learning pathways, and what is meaningful and how can you do it where it doesn't feel overwhelming and like extra on the plate. How can you bring it in a way that makes sense and teachers can resonate with and is going to be impactful and meaningful for the students engaging with these skills. And then, of course, there's the whole idea of AI and, where does that come? How does that present itself in the context of your school through your curriculum, through your policies, through the behaviors, through your digital citizenship? And what are those skills that now need to be focused on? And how might you need to reshift the priorities of professional development and learning to really accommodate this new set of tools that's going to be even more and more present in our lives at levels of power that sometimes seem overwhelming? And as this quote says so well, we need to understand that at the end of the day, it's about human behavior. And even with a student information system or large language models or whatever you're working with, human behavior is the key. How do you support it? How do you understand it? How do you create consensus? How do you manage it? How do you build those expectations? How do you ensure there's a sense of support and autonomy? And I think all of that is really tied to human behavior, whatever the tool or the environment is. And that goes for the idea of how do we structure these ecosystems to be really effective in that transaction that you do between the student information system, the learning management system, or your workspaces or the digital skills. How do you create the dialogue, the structures, and give that learner autonomy to make it purposeful? And then we spent time on adult learning, and I think it was just wonderful to hear how you each are learning and how there are points of commonality, but there are also points of differentiation, and understanding how important that is to understand people's learning. And then the idea of the IT strategic plan, really, it's kind of the message that anything, when I first started this course in 2009, Digital was very much siloed. It was really the beginning. We were talking about Moodle. It was really the beginning. The first laptop programs were coming about. And many of our participants didn't have internet, or they had very bad internet. They had power outages. So it's really evolved. But now I think you can't make the digital world a separate entity in any of the conversations you're having at school. It's just embedded. It's not the digital world, it's our world, and getting rid of that word digital and understanding all the topics that we talked about have to be embedded in a really meaningful way that's appropriate within your context. And then the mindset. So as you start working with the tools, and you yourself as an educator and a leader start thinking, what are my mindsets? How am I going to engage with these tools? What can I do? What are the approaches? What should I be doing to support others? How do I frame that with policies? What about free tools? What about paid tools? Really using your mindsets and your experience to really think, what is the key that we need to get to, because at the end of the day, we're thinking about the student. What is going to be the value added proposition of your decision for student learning? And then never underestimating that you as a leader have to talk to people. You have to convince people. As Ken Kesey says, you have to go to the place and make a case. And how you make that case, be it through stories or really engaging presentation or workshops or just time sitting at a table with a coffee, those things are so critical to a leader, especially when you're engaging with technology, making sure that you have that buy-in and it's clear and succinct, and understanding what your audience wants, but also what your audience needs. Because at the end of the day, you are the leader. You are there because the school community is looking to you to guide and distribute that leadership and share that leadership to make it purposeful for student learning. And we talked a lot about innovation, and here again, a wonderful little infographic that kind of gives you some provocation, some reflection, some ideas to think about as you think about this in the context of your own school. And you have these dilemmas in your practice. Every day you come in front of a dilemma. There's something that is unexpected. There's something that you might not know. You might have to reach out, and understanding how can you tie all these different lighthouses and moments that you've had this week with the peers in the breakout rooms, the activities, the comments that you've received, the comments that you've given, and the learning. What does that do to your dilemma of practice? How can you leverage that? What might you not do, and what might you do, and what might you keep, what might you not keep, and thinking about that and taking the time and space for the next few weeks, not to rush and try to do it all, but just let it seep in and see if there are moments when you're walking down a street, or you're sitting at a beach, or you're climbing a mountain, or whatever you might be doing, something's going to pop into your head, and that will be the provocation to build from. As Robert Sternberg says, we need to be adaptive intelligence. This is a non-negotiable today. How are we curating adaptive intelligence in our learners, in our faculty, in ourselves? It's the ability to adapt and really work with the current problems, and to be able to anticipate future problems in the real world. What can we do to choreograph? What are kind of the structures, the frameworks, the dispositions? What are the digital tools and infrastructures that can give us that agility and be able to adapt, and know that adaptation is really critical? It's a kind of a non-negotiable today, but how do we translate that in a way that doesn't scare people, that engages people to be excited about that agility? So we're going to do a process called the 5 whys. And the reason I want to do this, because I think of many protocols when you're confronted as a leader with problems, or you're trying to create an understanding of purpose, this can be really a powerful technique to basically come to a clear understanding and a better result in the long run. So the way it works is quite simple. So you have 5 whys. The first one is, why digital fluency important for our school? To ensure that both students and teachers are proficient in using tools. I'm going to let you read it. And the idea is that as you ask the whys on the great topic, it digs in much deeper and really has you to think, what is really at the bottom of this? It could be a problem, or it could be a purpose, a plan. So just so you know, the PDF, Vicky's put it, the latest one. I've been updating these, so if you don't have the PDF with this, because it's in the PDF, Vicky, thank you again for just popping it in the chat room. Just download it. My apologies for changing it so late, but I appreciate your flexibility. Okay. So in your breakout room, you want to try, you can either do it with your application task or a priority you are or will be dealing with at your school. So you could make it your application task or something that you're dealing with at your school or that you will deal with your school. So really try the 5 why protocol. Let everybody try it. I think 12 minutes should be enough. And then talk about the process on how might you use this in your own context. Why might this be useful? So you're going to, in your group, you can pick whatever. If you want to say that you like drinking coffee, try that. Whatever works for you, but I want you to get practicing this and really consider this as a great protocol amongst leadership teams. Because so often everybody comes with their perspective and assumptions, and this does a great way of kind of filtering some of that noise out and really beelining to the key. What is the rationale, purpose, or how are you going to solve this problem? What is the problem? So on that note, I'm going to stop because it's quite a big mouthful, but I want to make sure, are we comfortable with the 5 why protocol, or are there any clarifications required? Okay. So think about all the learning that we've done, that we've shared together. Think about all these things that you've shared about your experience, your wisdom, your learning from each other, and then maybe tie that to the 5 why protocol, whatever it might be. It can be whatever. Really, if you want to talk about coffee, go for it. I just want you to do the 5 why protocol. That's the purpose. That's the why. Okay, have a great conversation. 12 minutes, and really please be good about doing timekeeping and making sure everybody's honored. Thank you so much. Okay, did everybody get back from space? I
Yes,
can't say
we
from
are all
here.
here.
Awesome. Okay. Just on the actual protocol and the 5 whys, any feedback, any thoughts? Have you used it? If you did use it today, what did that feel like? How do you see and just raise your hand, be it real or virtual. Beate.
I think in our team we look at the tasks that a lot of us, like the 3 of us, look at our own tasks, and that was really powerful. And we were later on discussing on how actually the good point was made towards the end that depending on that first question, which direction the conversation is going to go to, and how
that's
is
a
it
really
going to
good.
progress.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that reflection. Thank you, Beate. Anybody else want to talk about it or something that they might have done themselves? Julia and then Stephen.
Yeah, just in doing it in this sort of situation is interesting, because when I've done the 5 whys before, it's been with a team of teachers who are all involved. And so there's sometimes a phase where we can go and collect information, or we can actually get the answer to the why. I found that we were it was a really good conversation, but it was very sort of like our ideas and hypotheticals rather than grounded in what was actually happening on the ground for those people. So I think that it's a great protocol, but I think that we also need to be able to go and get like concrete answers to have a better why to follow up with.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's an important reflection. Thank you. And then Stephen.
We found that this is a good activity, but it needs to be done in a group. So the first time we did it, I tried to ask my own why questions to myself, and then it ended up in a bit of a jumble and just a circle. But so the other members of the group need to ask one person the why questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you. Oh, nice that you're trying things out and seeing some patterns for enhancements. Any other share outs? Okay. Thank you. And
John,
yes,
can I
please.
have
Yeah,
my-
of course. I'm
Oh.
sorry, I didn't see your hand. My apologies. Please
That's
share.
okay. I was in Julia's group, so I just want to give a quick shout out to Julia for facilitating our conversation. And I wanted to share that this was my first time doing this protocol, and from Julia's facilitation and our conversation, I also realized that good facilitation also will help with keeping us stay focused on the discussion and the core issue. Otherwise, we can go off to different places.
Yes. Yeah. And especially with these protocols like the Y protocols, it often gets you talking about other things. So yeah, very good point. Thank you for sharing that, and hats off to Julia. Thank you, Julia. Philippe.
So we've used this protocol in my school in the past to look at fears. Why is this a bad idea? And then once you've answered why a few times, everybody's afraid of chaos. It always leads to chaos. So it highlights the fact that people need order and structure, and they're very afraid of chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that certainty, routines, and if you read a lot of change, philosophy and theories, it's that we are animals of routine. We like things to be the same, however much we claim we don't.
And then the
but
next
we do.
question can be, how do we then manage that so there isn't that feeling of chaos, right? So you recognize that those feelings have come up, but then as the leader, you're asking, okay, what can I do to support you to have this not feel chaotic?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for your share outs, and we're going to continue. So one of the things that all of you are going to face is your stakeholders. As a school leader, you have stakeholders, and all of you are making this application task. But what do your stakeholders think? What are they going to think? How are they going to react? How much are you going to have to lean in on them? Those stakeholders might be board members, they might be leadership team members, they might be students, teachers, parents, they might even be the outside world, a government organization, or some relationship you have with an outside entity. So when you're thinking about your application task, you'd also need to be very mindful that it's all very great coming up with a good idea, but who is the recipient, or who's going to be part of it? Who's going to be the co-creator or the collaborator? Who's going to have input? All those things about the stakeholders is really, really important. So we're going to continue working on your task, but using a protocol called Circle of Viewpoints. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to create a list of 2 stakeholders, and if that's too much, pick one. And think about that stakeholder group in your application task. Who are they? What do you know about them? How do they react to change? What might they think about this? Are they going to roll their eyes because you just come back from another PTC course and this is the 3rd time you do this? And then you're going to say, I'm thinking of my application task from the point of view of a parent, and then talk about what the parents might think. A wondering I have for my second stakeholder for my application task will be etc. So the idea is that you want to think through the eyes of student, parents, your leadership team, your colleagues, of somebody in the school context, because the fact is none of your application tasks, I would assume, some might be just for you. Most of them, and if they're for you, how will that new knowledge impact your stakeholders? I remember often with one of my wonderful heads, every time they went to a conference, everybody dreaded the leadership team the day after because there would be a million new ideas and a million new initiatives. And there was just all that excitement. And we were just like, okay, but what about all the other stuff we have to do? So are we comfortable with this? Can I just have a thumbs up if we are comfortable? Okay. So again, we're modeling on Julia. Be very determined. Use the protocol. Stick to the task. Stakeholders. Just pick one. One is enough. And it's circle of viewpoints. Yeah? So have a good conversation. You have 10 minutes with your group.
Okay.
I have a great story about not interacting with your stakeholders. So I was in a school and we had a bus system. And there was a lot of issues with buses coming at certain times. And in isolation, one member of the leadership team changed the arrival of the bus times to be a little later, but they never thought, and they didn't talk to the middle school leader, that actually that time they moved it to was when the middle school kids had an early morning outdoor time. So the buses were trying to get through a playground while kids were playing. And it was just, one of those beautiful moments where stakeholders were not all interacted with and where there was no systems thinking. So I just think sometimes thinking about the stakeholders is really important. Would love to hear some of the wonderings that you have, if you're comfortable, about your stakeholders. And I'm wondering how many of you included your support staff? Who talked about their support staff? That's all the administrative staff, the maintenance, security, cafeteria, all the people in the offices, blah, blah, blah. How many people talked about them? Julia, you want to tell us who they are and why?
So mine were they were indirectly put in because my interest is in improving communication like among teams and between teams. And I'm from the IT department, so I'm really interested in how to improve communication. And in order to do that, you really need to involve all of these different departments that have different priorities and different expertise. IT has to talk to admissions and admissions has to talk to, and we all have different frames of reference, different jargon, all of that. So how do we bridge those gaps and shrink those distances? So those are the people who are critically important.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's really nice to have that perspective and wondering. Somebody else. I'm going to start picking on people if no, but no, I'm joking. Jonathan? Did you have your hand up?
I didn't, but I mean, I can just, I was in Julia's group. I mentioned one specific stakeholder with a title, and coming as an outsider, I wasn't on, I'm not going to say the whole story, but I wasn't on the AI committee, wasn't a participant, but I believe that there's some changes that I think in terms of like semantics that might be made. And so, I mean, they're human beings, and I wonder how to not step on anyone's toes and just deliver it professionally.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And that's always hard to navigate when it's one person, as you're saying, and then has a title. I agree. That's quite challenging. Any other thoughts on the stakeholders? In the wondering, was that helpful to start thinking about the stakeholders? Eleni, can I ask you maybe why that was? And I'm just being very courageous here and just making assumptions you're happy to share.
I'm happy to share. Yes,
I know you are.
absolutely.
Thank you, Eleni. Go ahead.
So, well, what we discussed in our group was that it's very important, like to look at all issues through like the perspective of different stakeholders. First of all, just to have a holistic view of the issue, but also like be well prepared for any issues that may arise that you haven't anticipated. And towards the end of our discussion, I was about to say that it's interesting that more often than not, we all like include in our mission statement that what we do at schools has the student at the heart. And like more often than not, the students are not among the stakeholders that we take into account.
Absolutely. That's so true. That's so true. I think, and Philippe, am I able to put you in, where's Philippe on this? Oh, there you are, Philippe. Maybe talk about the way you put students in your leadership team meetings. Am I correct? And I remember we talked about that a few, no, wasn't it
No,
you?
it
Okay.
was Chen Chuyu
Oh,
as
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Philippe. I'm just curious because I know some leadership teams, and in one school we did it. We always had a high school and middle school representative that sat in all the leadership teams as long as it wasn't to do with personnel or behavior.
well,
They had a seat at the table. Philippe?
what I can say quickly is I was not directly involved with that, but when my head of school designed the 5-year strategic plan, there were 2 students representative.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. And Chuyu?
What I shared yesterday was at our faculty meetings, we on the Wednesday, we would start with student voices. So we would ask different student groups to share on things. For example, there were 3 things that we wanted to focus on in our high school this year: clarity, growth, and care. So we invited different student groups to come share with the faculty what clarity meant for them. What are some examples from teachers that show them that there's clarity, and how clarity helped them with their learning, and then same with care. What are some examples of care that teachers have done, and what care means to them, etc. So every faculty meeting we would start with student voices.
Nice.
And our SUCO has monthly meetings with our admin team to share their concerns and student voices. And I know that our head of school invited the SUCO for a few meetings to share with them the direction that our school is headed, and especially with technology. You know, we're reading the anxious generation, so the head of school already started this conversation with SUCO.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's just rich. Wonderful. Stephen.
I have a question for Chuyu. Could you repeat those 3 things? It was clarity, care, and
Growth.
clarity, care, and growth. Okay, thank you. Because I'm interested in ways of getting feedback from my class on my performance and the school's performance. So I'm going to use those. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for the share outs, and also hopefully touching base with your stakeholders can be a helpful protocol to do. So we're coming to the kind of last part of our day, and there's this wonderful book called Cognitive Surplus. And it's really about how, you know, so often we talk about digital connections in a negative sense. Social media is making kids depressed, anxious. But I think Clay Shirky's stance is quite interesting, where it really is, there's so much creativity and generosity in the cognitive surplus. And what he means by cognitive surplus is really that if we're with this interactivity and this interconnectedness that we have in the world with digital tools, we can really, if we're not passively consuming media and passively edutainment, that we're actually collaborating and creating activities. There's an immense amount of power out there when you coalesce with different groups virtually, and you can really get long distances come closer, different perspectives, different views. And he really talks about how with the internet, we've had so many more community-driven initiatives that have had really enhanced education. And if you think of it, we're all online here, and different people are sharing things, and you're saying, oh, I'd like to know more about that. That's the idea of the cognitive surplus, that within the room, collectively, we have this surplus of cognition that we can tap into. And I think, we do that through the virtual PLNs. It's the collaboration, the resources, the learning, the peer support, and this idea of accessibility. And I think these are just things that are really quite powerful. And I'm hoping here, as we wrap up, that this is going to be a chance now through this activity for you to start making some commitments to each other, how you can stay connected. What are you going to do? What has somebody done that's really worked well for them in the context of a PLN and a personal professional learning network? And what, maybe if you haven't, what are some tips people could share, and how as a group that you spent a very intense week together, you spent a lot of time talking to each other, sharing, being on each other's Padlets or on the discussion boards or Flipgrids. You have shown an immense amount of shared leadership and supporting each other. How do we transition that now into a professional personal learning network in a digital environment? And so what I would like you to do is to think of where you go. It could be anywhere. They could be WhatsApp group. It could be as sophisticated as the latest Thread or X or whatever you might be doing, a Google group or LinkedIn or Facebook or even TikTok videos, whatever medium you are. What I'd like to do is give you each person answers the first question. You go around, and then everybody starts talking with the other questions. But first, we want to hear everybody's app of choice. And if you don't have one, consider what might be one that you're interested in. Or you say, I don't have one. I'm open ears to learn about one that I could gravitate to. So really just spend some time thinking about your professional learning network, especially when you think when you're adopting student information systems and maybe there are no other schools using it, or your learning management system, or you're having problems with Google, and the school next door is a Microsoft school. How could you leverage that professional learning network? Because so often the complexities of IT systems, often the resources are not close by, especially in international contexts. Maybe all the information is not in the language that you're most comfortable with, and how to leverage that. And what do you see the advantages as a leader and why? So just take some time, and this is hopefully going to be an opportunity to say, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn, or also, hey, I don't do this. Could you show me how to do it? Or this is how I do it, and this is what's worked and not worked. Any questions? Okay, 10 minutes on professional learning networks in a virtual environment. And this is really an opportunity to be kind and generous to each other. Not that you're not always. And then we can start.
We're all set.
Okay. Kim, over to you.
All right. Let me just turn on my recording here. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just give you a second to look at that quote. And I think you as leaders can change the word teacher there to leader, because the students that you are talking about as leaders then become those teachers that are under your care, basically. So I've worked at my school shockingly for 28 years. And I've been in different roles. I've experienced lots of different leaders throughout my journey at this school, different directors, principals, coordinators. And I know how it feels in the rare times where the whole school is moving in one direction. It's happened one time in my 28 years where I genuinely felt like for the time that person was in charge, we were all in the boat together. It's very powerful. And it happened because the vision was super clear. the vision was more important than other things. We all knew where we wanted to go. We all believed in it, and that leader helped us to believe in it. The tasks to get there were clear, and more importantly, there was a pot of goodwill that was never empty. So there was an awareness of this need for give and take, and nobody was running on empty. Everybody got paid back, so to speak. I need you to do this, but in return, this is what you're going to get. Or I'm aware that you're giving an extra hour, but this is how you're going to get that time back somewhere else. Just little things that made sure that that pot of goodwill was never empty. People felt valued and respected. They felt seen. They felt heard. And so these things are possible, but unfortunately rare. And the second message I have for you today goes back to my very first year of teaching. And I came in with all the enthusiasm that you do as a first-year teacher, and quickly realized, oh my gosh, there is so much that I don't know how to do. And I thought I knew everything because I had a teaching degree, so of course I must know how to do it all. And I was feeling super overwhelmed, and like a fraud. How do I teach reading? I thought I knew. I took the reading class. How come I can't teach reading? What am I going to do with all these kids? And I was really losing it. And my master teacher, or not my master teacher, but my partner teacher next to me, she had loads of experience. And she said, Kim, you do one thing. You pick one thing and you work on that. And then the next year, you're going to pick another thing and you're going to work on that. And maybe in 6 years' time, you'll have worked on all the things and you'll be better at those. And then you can start all over again and pick one thing to focus on. So you've had a week with John of learning all kinds of new things. And you're probably going back feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to start this. I need to do this. We need an AI policy. We need to talk to the students about their digital citizenship. Gosh, we need to look at this curriculum, this DQ thing. What are we going to do with that? How are teachers going to deal with fraud and all of these things? Pick one thing. Pick one thing that you're going to focus on. We've all been in schools with 38 different initiatives running at the same time. And everybody gets spread too thin. And the end effect is really lackluster. And people lose faith and they're no longer on the boat. They've jumped off and they don't believe in what's happening. They don't believe in the vision. So pick your one thing. What's your one thing that you learned this week that you want to walk back to your school with and say, hey, I want to have a conversation about this, or I want to implement this, or I'd like to develop a policy around this. Pick your one thing.
Thank you very much, Kim. One thing, the number one, so powerful. Just a really nice number. Visually, it's just an easy number, it's not too hard. Just excellent. Thank you, Kim, so much. And I want to just thank Kim because she's doing this voluntarily all week, has come in, and it's just been such a pleasure. So Kim, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. It's always such a pleasure to be able to collaborate. And also I want to thank Vicky because Vicky is in the background doing everything to make sure this happens correctly and well. And Vicky, you're amazing. I'm emailing her at 5 o'clock her time, and she's responsive and even afterwards. So Vicky, from the bottom of my heart to you, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure and appreciate so much. And I think it's just nice to have both Kim and Vicky as part of that conversation that we have. Now, there's graduation. And is Sue here? Are you here, Sue? No? Can I do this graduation without Sue or? So what I need is that Catherine, Jeff, Clinton, Sam, and Priyanka, you should be able to put a virtual graduation hat around your screen. Can you work that out? Do you know how to do that? So in the React, there should be, wait, hold on. Here's the PTC is coming in. Where's the graduation hat? There has to be a when Sue comes in, we'll ask her. Sue, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're wondering about the graduation hat. Can you remind me where the graduation hat is?
It is in the bottom left corner where it says video. There's a little caret, a little arrow going up. And if you choose video filter, and hopefully you have an update version of Zoom, video filter, you can scroll on and put on your hat.
There you go.
And John
But
just did.
I'm not
Well,
graduating, so I'm stop
That's
that.
fantastic.
I know, I'll take one off too.
Oh, now I can't take it off. Damn.
You have
Okay.
to click on none. It's on none at the top on the
Okay,
left.
okay. Choose video filter.
Great. I see Clinton and Jeff
This is fantastic.
have theirs on. Yes.
Okay.
And Brian, perfect. That's 3.
I still can't
So-
find it, Sue.
Okay,
So Pri, where the where it says video at the bottom, do you see the little caret going up beside it? There's a little arrow just going up, pointing up. Pri, do you see that?
No, I don't see that carrot. So I'm on the video, and then I go to choose video filter.
Yep, you got it. Choose video filter. And if you have an updated version of Zoom, then you should be able to find it when you scroll down a little bit.
Okay, so it says eyebrows, mustache, no. Video filters, it says none.
Well, we'll still spotlight you because you're still important. Philippe, have you got, Philippe, are you graduating? No. Have you got you're graduating, but you just don't have the thing either. We can still
Okay,
spotlight you.
Sam, Clinton, and Jeff, you're looking very dapper. Priyanka, Clinton, Jeff, and Catherine. Where's Catherine? She's, oh, I think Catherine had to leave early, maybe?
Catherine did. She had to leave a little bit early.
Okay.
I'm here. Hello.
Oh, Catherine,
There, oh,
okay.
perfect. Awesome. So just a reminder, actually, Pri, it's only the people who are graduating with all 4 courses who are putting their caps on. Philippe, you're muted, so I can't tell what you're saying.
I'm taking you off. Sorry.
Yeah, perfect.
How do I get mine off, Sue?
Take off your hat.
Correct.
Brian, if you scroll in that same section, then you will find it says none at the very top of the filters. Okay, perfect. That's great.
Are we ready, Sue, for the formal? Yeah, our guests, could you please quieten the guests and the kids in the hallway, please? Thank you. And here we go.
We are here to celebrate the graduates. The graduates who have earned the Certificate of International School Leadership. They've done this through a commitment to growth, a commitment to their students, and we are so happy on behalf of the PTC to be part of your leadership journey. And on behalf of the PTC, I say to the 5 of you, go forth and lead.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Let's make sure that we get a picture of the grads and also let them know that there is a video in your honor that is in Learn World in the course wrap up so that you have that to share with other people because it truly is a celebration. So thank you so much.
Congratulations, each one of you. Phenomenal.
Can I have
Thank you
everyone
so
do
much.
a big smile? I'm going to take a picture in 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Thank you.
Well done, everybody. Congratulations. That's quite the amazing feat and motivation for everybody else in the room that's near to the end. But congratulations. It's been a privilege to have you take this class as the last one of your journey in leadership. And we hope to see you again. We have plenty more courses and we look forward to having you keep joining us. So on that note, we're going to kind of come to from Spotlight. Sorry.
And John, just before we go into the go forth and lead, if it's okay, if we can take a moment to thank you because John Micton is such a respected PTC trainer, longtime PTC trainer. But one of the things that I love the most about John is every conversation, every time I'm in on even a day of a course, I learn new things because he is the most up-to-date person who is constantly looking to make sure that he can support us as we move forward from where we are, but with what is available at the time. So I just want to, on behalf of the PTC, but hopefully on behalf of all of you, a huge thank you to John.
Thank you very much. It's a real privilege and honor to be able to do this. And yeah, you can take the course next year because it's all going to be different. It's all going to change. So
Which I love.
we'll be
Can I also, John, I'm not sure if you've already done it, but I do want to thank Kim because
we did.
Kim
We
came
did.
on.
Keep going. Keep going.
Did you already do it?
Yeah, but you can do it again.
Okay.
And
I've just been so impressed with Kim that not only has she jumped in to share experience as the tips every single day that she has been offering you, but she also stepped in and did a pearl as well. So I really appreciate everything that she's done. And then to my colleague, Vicky, who has so recently joined us with the PTC and again just jumped in to be able to be the tech support for the tech class as she was traveling. I really appreciate her as well. So on behalf of the PTC, thank you to all of our facilitation supporters. And then final thank you is to our participants. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And well done, because we know it's a heavy course and we're so appreciative of all the work that you did.
Yeah, and Sue, thank you, because Sue and I have worked very closely on a variety of projects, and she is the best critical friend. She doesn't mince her words, but does it with empathy, and I absolutely so appreciate it because she really puts the learner at the forefront. So thank you, Sue. It's just, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days. I actually am going down to Lisbon to do some work with the PTC. So looking forward to that. On a very mundane, not fun note, this is where you can find your application task to post it and the course evaluation. That's really important. You need to know we take the course evaluation very seriously. Sue, myself, Bambi, the whole team, we read every single comment. And that's the only way we can get better is by your honest comments. And we really appreciate the time that you put into giving us that feedback. And I want to thank all of you for all the feedback during the week. It just makes it that much easier. On that note, I would like to leave you this quote from the great American composer. And if you would like to stay connected, you can scan my QR code and you can be in touch. I look forward to supporting you as appropriate and definitely look forward to being connected. And this often happens. I'll be presenting at a school at a keynote, or maybe I'm doing a workshop somewhere, and I suddenly see somebody that's been in my online class, and it's like, oh, there you are. So many years ago in 2013, Bambi had me do an online virtual class. So we had a whole bunch of school leaders do everything online. It was way ahead before anything was done like that. And I remember a year later, they were all at the PTC in Miami having breakfast. And it was the first time we'd physically seen each other. It was like this huge festival of joy. So I look forward to our paths crossing. And on that note, let's put our hands together. And the last time, let's, on count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go forth and lead.
Go forth and lead.
I will stay on. If you want to make an appointment for the one-to-one today, I'm going to stay on for about 10 minutes, or if you have any follow-up questions. I see a question, Murat.
Actually, it's not a question, John. I don't want to take their times, but I was planning to create a WhatsApp group to stay in touch for the professional learning network. Is that okay to share the link from the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy for you to do that. Anything like that, that's nice, putting some of the learning into action. So yeah, if you'd like to join that WhatsApp group, please. Okay, well, have a wonderful summer. Thank you. It has been intense. You have been there every day with smiles and sharing so much kindness and expertise and wisdom and supporting each other. And I just so appreciate how you've commented on each other and supported each other. Thank you. That takes a lot of time and thought, and the generosity is really inspiring. So thank you. And I look forward to our paths crossing someday. And be well, rest up. Now, you know, after you upload that application task, time out, chill, chillax, as my children used to always say. It's time to chillax. So be well, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Goodbye, John. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you so much,
Everyone,
John.
bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Vicky.
Thanks. Bye-bye.